Okay, I'm back again. I think we might be on part 9, and this is where we start putting our book together. So we've got our piece of paper, a piece of lightweight card, 3.5 by 7. This, you need your score lines ideally to be on the grain again, like we discussed earlier in this series. And we're going to do some more scoring. You can use your bone folders to skewer. I've got this little Teflon tool with a bluntish end. Mrs. Cog uses the blade of a knife, whatever you've got really. The tool that comes with your scoreboard is fine. I've lost the Martha Stewart one. So I'm going to make my first score line at 1 inch. Got the short edge here, 1 inch. And then I want 1.5 inches. But, and to my mind, this is fairly crucial. I want this, the width of this spine to be a fraction less than the actual book, so that when we sit it in here, it folds in nicely. So the way I do that, I've scored at my inch. I take this piece of paper, my grooves on this scoreboard are 1/8 of an inch apart, and I move the paper along approximately 1/16 of an inch. So it's not at the next mark here, it's between the inch and 1/8. So I'm going to put it down so I do it right. So 1 inch, shift that along very slightly, 1/16 of an inch at the most, and score at 1.5. So our actual score line is slightly less, our actual width is slightly less. Slightly less than, hopefully you can see that, slightly less than 1.5. So that's all we need that for. This video is quite, well, maybe they're all dull, I don't know. This one will be quite dull because I need to take my time over this and we need to be accurate. So once we've folded that, you'll see that it'll sit nicely just inside, a fraction inside our original score lines. So like so. So when we glue this in, it's going to fold up nicely and with no buckling. So what we've got to do now, and I folded away from the valley the same way that I did the first time. So what we need to do now is mark our stitching lines. We're going to actually stitch our signatures onto this side. But for the sake of this video, I'm going, and I would recommend this so that you don't have anything showing on this side. We're going to use the back initially to mark where we're going to put our signatures in, and we're going to put the first one in the middle. I've got this Tim Holtz ruler, which allows me to position this. So I've got my centre here, and I've come out 1, 2, 3. That side, 1, 2, 3, that side, and those two lines, the third line, which is 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, will sit just slightly beyond my score line. So that's my centre there and there, and then I'm going to come out 3/8 of an inch, which is there and there. 3/8 is there and there. I'm in the middle of a video.
Videoing yourself?
Pardon?
Videoing yourself?
Yeah. I'll have to start again now. See you soon.
All right.
Bye. Bye. Sorry, I might try and leave that. We're in isolation. That was my sister shouting at me through the window and the dogs barking. Sorry about that. So I hope this will be all right. I don't want to start this one again. So I've got my 3 lines, and now I'm actually going to draw 3 straight lines through those marks that I've made. Okay, so this is where our 3 signatures are going to sit, approximately 3/8 of an inch apart. And now we're going to mark where we're actually going to put the holes. So we do exactly the same. It's 7.5 inches. So I've got my centre here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 that way, 1, 2, 3.5 that way. And I'm going to mark my centre. I'm on the centre line. That's my centre. I'm going to come in 1/2 inch from the bottom and 1/2 inch from the top. Okay. I don't want to get confused by these initial marks that I've made. So I'm just going to rub those out, my little guide marks there and there. Okay, so back to our centre line. So we've got 3 marks, the centre and 1/2 inch in, and then I want to do halfway between these 2. So that's 1.5 that way and 1.5 that way. So these are going to be I'm going to make holes here for my 5-hole. We're doing a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. And now I want to do marks, corresponding marks on, let's go that way around, on the other 2 lines. And to my mind, it's worth really taking your time over this, making sure your marks are absolutely level. This ruler is quite good because you can line it up straight. So that's there and there. There and there. Okay, so those are going to be our stitching lines. Now, we'll make the holes for this first, bear with me. I've got an old telephone book, and I'm just going to pop this on here. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz retractable pokey tool. You could use this is an awl as well. And I'm just going to carefully mark my holes from this side. I'm only going to go through a fraction at the moment. There we go. And then on this side, which is the side we're going to sew, I'm just going to make them a little bit larger. Just so that when we come to stitch them, they'll be easy to see, basically. So there we've got our holes marked, so we can stitch our signatures shortly onto that. And now we need to we need to make another template. So this is our actual spine. Now we need to make a template for the signatures, so we can put the holes in our signatures. And the way I do that is to just fold. This is a bit of card, doesn't really matter what it is. It's a bit of card. I'm going to cut it to the same length as this. I'm going to line the fold. This is not this side, the folded side. I'm going to line the fold up with my centre line, and I'm just going to mark a corresponding little mark on here. So this is where I'm going to punch my holes. You'll see how in a minute. Turn it back that way and just make an initial hole into that crease. Okay, right, so I'm going to call that part A, 9A, only because I want to check that that little interlude wasn't too off-putting, and then I'll come back and show you how I'm doing the actual stitching. Thank you.